Good evening to everyone in Alberta, Canada, and beyond. It is Wednesday, March 20th, 2024, and I'm Kerry Lambert, and I welcome you to an online webinar, Evening of Solutions for New Alberta, brought to you by the Alberta Prosperity Project, also known as APP. APP's purpose is to educate, inspire, and unite all Albertans, businesses, and organizations to protect their prosperity, individual freedoms, rights, and self-determination by empowering the Alberta government to restructure Alberta's relationship within or without Canada. Of course, we wouldn't be able to do this without your help. If you can, please share this webinar. If you can, please tell us in the comments which city or town you're watching from, as well as what platform you're on. That helps me to actually determine where we should be, or maybe you've even got another idea of where we should be on. So right now we're on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Rumble, as well as after this live, we go back, edit out the parts that maybe there's some internet problems or stuff like that. And then we repost them again on all those platforms, as well as on audio and video sites like Apple, Spotify, BitChute, and Vimeo. APP is member driven with a goal of 1 million plus members to help steer the political process. And you can go and check out a little bit more about us at our website, albertaprosperityproject.com. Check that out. We do take memberships. Memberships are 1 year for $20, 2 years for $30, 3 years for $40, or you can make a donation. And I know if you are a member already, we ended up having an email blast today that basically just said, I'm going to read it if you don't mind. Give me it's really, really quick. Alberta is on the cusp of a significant transformation. At Alberta Prosperity Project, we envision a future where our province stands independently as a beacon of sovereignty to the rest of Canada and the world. To achieve this goal, we would appreciate your help. We are raising funds and recruiting volunteers for an active door-knocking campaign that will begin in mid-April. We aim to raise awareness about the potential changes an independence referendum can bring to the people of Alberta and highlight the prosperity and freedom that would come with achieving our goal. Just have to do a couple of quick little changes here. We aim to find 600,000 individuals willing to vote yes with an independence referendum when an independence referendum is passed. Albertans, our goal may seem daunting, but it is achievable with your assistance. Please join us. Your contribution, be it financial or as a volunteer, can make a crucial difference. Donate a monthly gift of $10 a month. Will provide the marketing materials and social media we need to spread this message. You can also sponsor a billboard. We're going to be talking a little bit more about that in a future episode, but we want either 1 or 2 or maybe 100 billboards. I'm kidding. But a lot of billboards out there. We want this mission to become mainstream conversation, and a billboard on a busy highway is definitely something that we're looking at right now. And of course, volunteering, we are looking for people to lead our campaign in each community. And for those who want to help with door knocking, training will be provided. Together, let us build a future that is truly yours, sovereignty for Alberta, and that was signed by the Alberta Prosperity Project. So I wanted to read that out loud so that everybody knows. And if you want to be able to get a little bit more info, you can always go to bit.ly/ABVoteYes. And of course, we always take a look at the ticker here. We're at 16,000, well on our way to the 600,000 that we're anticipating. So please do check that out. I'm going to hide that for a second. As you can tell, I'm on my own here. And so little juggling. We'll see what we can do here. Tonight's episode, I'm really looking forward to this. It's called UNDRIP and what it means for Albertans. And if you don't know what UNDRIP is about, we actually done a couple of videos in the past. I'm just going to call up, if you go to the Alberta Prosperity Project Rumble page, you will find that we did a webinar last year with Rayan Spotted Bull, and that was done in March of last year. How timely. And then on the Chris and Kerry Show, we even had Leighton Gray on, and that was in April of last year. And you can find those again. Just go on the Chris and Kerry Show or onto the Alberta Prosperity Project and check those out because it's very timely. Everything that we talked about last year is now even coming to fruition, which is actually a scary thing to say about what's going on here. But our guest is Stacy Bula, who's a researcher and advocate for personal freedoms and constitutional rights. And I think last week I did say that we would have APP's interim CEO, Christopher Scott, joining us for this weekend. I almost promised that, but unfortunately, he is actually in Europe. He's in Europe, and he was taking part in the Christine Anderson event that was taking place in Amsterdam. And he's currently in Venice, Italy, and he will be reporting back to us next week. I will have him as the guest on the webinar. We're going to be talking a little bit about what's happening in Europe and how that could be affecting us very, very soon, as well as kind of what are the plans with the Alberta Prosperity Project, because we're going to be talking a little bit more about that a little later in the show too. So with that, I'm now going to bring on Stacy. And of course, as we always do, if you have questions, please just in the comments, put 3 question marks there in the comments. And then that way I can flag that while I'm kind of running everything else in the show. So with that, hello, Stacy.
Hello. Hi. Hey, everybody. Thanks.
Great
for tuning.
Awesome.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, that's great. Stacy's actually been you've been quite vocal lately. You've been on quite a few podcasts talking about UNDRIP. And you know what fascinates me is that you are not what I would call an UNDRIP expert. You have not gone to school for UNDRIP. There's no course for UNDRIP. There's no course for United Nations Sustainable Development, etc. It's all research that you've done. So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about yourself for a couple of minutes and tell me how you managed to get down this path.
Yeah, it's wild. It's not one that I ever anticipated being on, but it's been a journey, and it's a little bit heavy, like as we're kind of going through it, because as you start kind of peeling back that onion, it's you understand how like woven everything is, and how like we literally are being attacked at every angle possible right now. So yeah, it's crazy to me, and life is changing very quickly, and I know that that's all intentional, so that it's overwhelming. But I think if all of us have a different focus and we kind of go at it together, then we can actually we're going to be okay. So
so what is your background, and how did you get involved with kind of making UNDRIP? Would you call that your specialty because you've done so much research on it? No, so there you go.
It's not my specialty, and this is like it's actually it's like a thing that I'm even like nervous to speak about, because it's one of those taboo things that we're not supposed to say in Canada, with this all of the new diversity, equity, inclusion training that like corporations make you go through, and the whole I guess indoctrination of our everything that we watch, like movies and content that comes in, and everything is telling us to act a certain way, and so I know this is taboo speaking about it. And I grew up in Wetaskiwin originally, and so very aware of what happens on a lot of the First Nations and the reservations that are out there. And I have grown up with a lot of empathy for the way that people have to live on the res, and it's crappy. And I know you get kind of used to living on that government pay, kind of like CERB during COVID. But and when you grow up in a certain situation, like that becomes your normal, and it's kind of scary to go outside of that. But I grew up in Wetaskiwin, so I see what the negative consequences are, and corruption is colorblind. It hurt everybody, and so when I kind of stumbled into this UNDRIP information, and then what was going on in our own province here right now, and the risk and the threat that is there, I had to speak up, because I think that it's a division. It's another divisive tool, just like all of the ones that they've got in their arsenal for us to fight. And I don't want a civil war. I have children. I do not want it to come down to people with guns defending their land, just like what happened in South Africa. In many other countries. Like, this is not something we just in Canada live in a bubble and we think it's never going to happen here.
Yeah.
But if we can learn from the past and things that have happened, and just by talking to one another and sharing stories, and we have so many amazing people that have migrated here from other countries to get away from crappy living environments. We can learn, and we can try and like help each other not fall to this. So
yeah.
No,
that's good. That's good. I know we've already had a couple of comments that we're getting an echo. So what I'm going to do is just so people know what's going on here. When I'm going to be talking for a long time, like I am right now, I'm going to mute Stacy so that we don't get the background noise, and then I'll unmute her, and then I'll just try and keep quiet so that we don't run into that. Right. So when we were originally talking about UNDRIP and how we found out about all this, right? And so I guess the biggest thing is, Stacy, how did you manage to stumble onto this? Did it impact your family? Did it impact anything that you were doing maybe with work? Was it more that you knew somebody that was First Nations, and to maybe tell the background story to give credibility into all the stuff that you're going to talk about, because honestly, it's all stuff we've already talked about anyway. So I'm not concerned about getting censored. I think this stuff needs to come to light, and this is a great platform that we can do it. I'm so glad that the Alberta Prosperity Project gives us this voice to be able to do this. So maybe just tell us a little bit more about that, Stacy.
Sure. So obviously during COVID, I kind of woke up and started paying attention and understanding that something was wrong. And I used to watch mainstream media and thought that that was accurate, and I was just living like everybody else probably was. And then COVID happened, and then that just changed my world, and it changed the way that I saw things. And instead of being distracted by Netflix movies and just living life, I started reading. And so I started reading like patents. I started reading, different papers on different medical treatments, because obviously I didn't know where to put my loyalty, but something felt kind of weird and something felt wrong. And so with work, at the time, I was at the BC Natural Resources Forum, and obviously, like me, like in alternative media, they were covering what was happening in New Zealand and Sri Lanka and Brazil and Australia with the implementation of UNDRIP and the wording and the legislation that was kind of coming down through United Nations, through the different global leaders that were kind of implemented in the different countries.
Now over there, was it called UNDRIP? Like, is that a universal statement or a universal term?
So yeah, like it is like the United Nations Declarations of the Rights of Indigenous People.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is called with the United Nations. There you go.
Yeah.
And but I was at,
just so people know, if you actually wanted to download this, just go on to UN.org and do a search for basically UNDRIP. You can even type in UNDRIP, but more technically, it's the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. And there is a document there that outlines basically, it looks all nice and fluffy. And as everything that we've seen, it looks like, this is a great idea. Why isn't everybody not just implementing this anyways, until what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Going to page 27 on there. Just leave it on the screen just for a sec. Yeah, thanks. 27, sorry. Please, sorry, 21.
21?
There we go. Yeah, page 21.
Yeah. Article 25?
Yep, thank you.
Okay.
but yeah, I didn't realize that it was in Canada yet because there wasn't a lot of coverage on it. So then I was at the this Natural Resources Forum in BC, and they had a lot of chiefs there and all of the kind of large mining corporations and whatnot. And they openly, Premier Eby was there speaking about fully embracing UNDRIP for British Columbia. And fast forward now a year, and like 95% of the land has been handed back essentially for First Nations to be the stewards of the land. Now, that doesn't mean ownership of the land. It means access to all of the land, and then control, essentially, or joint control over like what happens on it, and access to all the resources and whatnot. Um, and like I know that like the controversy behind this is that when you look at the pushback in Australia, there were this is what kind of brought my awareness up, is that there were Native people in Australia that were with the party, or like the people that were pushing back against it, the colonizers, because there's a really big narrative about, you know, the negativity about, because of the color of our skin being white, it's like reverse racism, which they say is not actually a term. And that's kind of the narrative when you bring that up. But
Actually, from what I've been told, it's more like they call it white privilege, really, right?
yes,
And
yeah,
that's kind of what we're being told. And again, we'll get more into that as we go on.
yeah. Um, so anyway, like there were people that like the people that were advocating in Australia that were speaking against it, they're like, we are just being used as like by the crown to take over ownership of all of the land. And they didn't want like a huge riot and civil war, and they already were like fatigued from COVID and all of that
Yeah.
craziness, right? Um, so I knew that there was something behind that too for us to kind of worry about, because we can see like in our country, like and there's a lot of great things like with the First Nation communities, like with their art and their
Absolutely.
use of the land and medicinal stuff. And there's a lot of things that we can learn from each other. Like it's like any of the cultures that are kind of coming in, we can learn and help with each other, like different things. Like when the settlers came too, like they had farming capabilities that, you know, enhanced Canada and helped Canada to become what it is today.
Yeah.
So realized that, okay, British Columbia, they were calling it UNDRIP. Then in Alberta, I started like, so we had moved out of the city because I was watching all of the cameras and the surveillance going up everywhere in Edmonton, and I don't want to participate in it, and I just, it was really worrisome to me. So I'm like, you know what, I'm out of here. So
Yeah.
we came to the lake. So when we started looking at the bylaws, and I noticed that our government, or our little village government, was changing our bylaws. And so when I was looking at the old bylaw versus the new bylaw, and sorry, yes, I'll go back to that in one sec. I
Yeah.
was going to the from the old bylaw to the new bylaw, and it was incorporating something called the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, and that's in Alberta here. So that took me on a journey, and I'm like, UNDRIP is already here. They're just not calling it UNDRIP. They're not calling it by name, because then they're just like COVID and the other situations that have been going on. They're learning as they try it in different countries, and what tactics working and what isn't, right?
Yeah.
So when I looked at on the actual document, so started trying to understand how does it all kind of come together. So reading, that's what you got to do, and you got to start reading the stuff, because you can't just believe videos like this one. You got
Yeah.
to
That's
actually
right.
read it and see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So Article 26, um, and then we'll roll this into Alberta Land Stewardship Act. So Article 26 is the Indigenous people have the rights to the lands, territories, and resources which they have traditionally owned, occupied, or otherwise used or acquired. That is really like broad, so it's everywhere. And
That's right.
and there's no proof of ownership, there's no proof of anything. It's just all access to any piece of land. And so when I think of that, I'm like, okay, well, I've worked my butt off and I've paid taxes like crazy and even crazier now. Um, I don't want just anyone having access, and maybe people think that that sounds awful, but in my little pocket that I have, I want to keep it that it's mine. I worked really hard for it, and maybe that sounds privileged, but I don't think it is, because I've worked really hard to have what I've accomplished. So, but what this means, and so I started researching for our lake. So they wrote in the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, and the Alberta Land Stewardship Act opens us up for the ability to expropriate our land. Now, when you kind of talk to people, they're like, well, people like the counties or municipalities have been able to expropriate land before. It usually happens if there's like a road that's getting built, or there's a major project or whatever like this. But essentially, the way that I'm interpreting, it's not just me interpreting this, it's other people as well that are speaking out, but I'm just probably a little bit more vocal, is that this basically will remove us, like farmers, people around water and lakes and watersheds, from the land, to ensure that hunting and fishing, like the original treaty rights, are honored. And that's like the perception of it. But what it actually is going to do is it's going to remove all of us from the land that like corporations want to use for future resource capabilities, whether it be windmills or huge solar farms or carbon capture or whatever it may be. But
now you said corporations. Do you mean corporations and governments, or specifically more so corporations?
well, I think they're working. I think they're working together. Like I think they're working hand in hand, because if you tie that back to the carbon tax, and this is, probably one of the reasons that I'm losing my job, is because like that the money that they're taking from us from this carbon tax in Canada is going straight to the government, and they're putting it out into green energy projects, right?
That's right.
And so the corporations aren't, I don't believe, having to pay that back. So we're funding all of this infrastructure, and so we're the bank, but we're going poor and to pay for all of this infrastructure. And it's all under the guise that we need this because climate change, and there's holes that are kind of getting poked in that as well. And like if there's money to be made, and there is a genuine risk, but they need our funds to pay for the infrastructure of it, like don't tax us to death, like make us investors. Like benefit all of the country instead of impoverishing us.
But then the rich
trying
won't
to
get richer.
push us off our land.
Yeah. Maybe we've missed a bit of a step here, and I just want to kind of go back here. So we were talking about initially. I've just muted you. I'll unmute you in a second. We talked initially about how the UN is basically looking at this land and basically saying, okay, it originally belonged to the Indigenous people, right? And I know there's already been people that have posted in the comments saying, well, aren't we all Indigenous people because we're all of the land, right? But according to what they're looking at from the UN is basically the First Nations people, the original settlers before, we'll just call ourselves Europeans or immigrants, if you want to call it that. So we end up having this. We're told that over and over and over again that we're we were basically brought in into this world. We're in Canada, and yet we shouldn't even be here because the land itself belongs ideally to the people that were here before, First Nations, right? And I'm getting into some controversial type of topic, and again, these views are not necessarily my own. They're may or may not be part of APP, and I just want to have this little disclaimer. But for me, one of the things that really opened up my eyes was when I was going to school. We ended up doing Lord's Prayer. We would do a O Canada. And if you've been in school lately, they don't do any of that. They do the land acknowledgements. And for me, I again, nice and fluffy on the UN side. Yeah, it sounds like this is a great idea. But for me, it makes the person that's listening or being involved with it, listening about the treaty, it makes us feel like we're guilty or that we're ashamed about being born into a country like we are. And I think psychologically that will end up going a little bit further so that when the UN finally does come in and says, you know what, we're going to give this land back to the original settlers, the First Nations, and they can then do what they need to do with the land, we'll fold like a house of cards, because it just sounds like, yeah, you're right. You know, we shouldn't be here because we've been told time and time again at all the sporting events and all the school events and anything where there's a large group of people. We're told that in Canada, for certainly, there's these land acknowledgements. So I just wanted to bring that up because I think that is a good thing to recognize that that's how they're getting into this whole conversation about UNDRIP and basically taking away our land and our rights. And so with that, I'm just gonna get Stacy to talk maybe a little bit more about that as well. And I've certainly noticed that too, even just driving by my school, the school that's near me. There's different flags up there. There's the Canada flag, which is now at half mast. I'm not exactly sure why. There's the Alberta flag, and they do have another flag up there, which honestly, I don't even know what it is, but I'm going to assume it's like a treaty flag. I haven't done enough. I haven't even gone and knocked on the school, but my guess is that any of the students in there probably would know what that flag is about. And yet here, I haven't even been taught about it because I'm not in the school system anymore. Right. So, but yeah, I just wanted to bring that up with Stacy to give us for a little bit more of this conversation.
Well, but and Kerry, you bring up a good point, because if you go on the federal government's website and you look at the tactics for implementing UNDRIP in Canada,
yeah,
it's all there. And so it's all like they're like, technically you're not even allowed to talk about UNDRIP without sharing all of the documentation. You can't like do little snippets. There's a legal kind of clause in there so that, because they anticipate that we're going to go through it and then pick out stuff and go, hey, this is worrisome. Like, what do you mean by this? So they don't want people picking out snippets. And because the broader picture, it does sound like very good. We all know that the crummy situation that First Nations have been in on their reservations and whatnot. Like, there is no denying that. Where it comes down to is who's responsible for that. And in terms of it being deflected, that this is a generational thing, and this is the colonizers and the white people, all you're doing is creating racism. And like, it's not good. It's not good for any of us. They are like using it's a passive tool on noted in the implementation of UNDRIP to use the land acknowledgement. It's
Yeah.
literally called out as a passive adoption tool for people to assimilate to the idea that it is First Nations land, and that the kind of ownership piece, right? And I know it's a complicated one. It's a complicated topic. It's one that has plagued Canada forever. And it's just it's even like conflicting within the nations. Like there's some that want the Indian Act, and there's some that don't want the Indian Act. Like it's
Very
just
true.
yeah, it's
And even the First Nations that I've talked to, there are the again, my terminology is probably just poor, and I'm sorry, but there's the internal government of the nation, so we'll call them the chiefs, and then there's everybody else, right? And to me, that looking at it from an outside view, it really does feel like there's already a bit of communism in there, because to me it just feels like you're either with us and you get the spoils, so you get a new truck and you get all the money. I don't know if you know, but was it only a couple of years ago where the Canadian Indigenous payout ended up happening? Did you hear about that? Basically, it's this: we're sorry we've done what we've done to you, so we're going to give you back $23 billion. And that's the amount of money that the government has allocated back to the bands. And if you go on the website, I should have had the page up here, but you can actually see which provinces and which bands get a certain amount of allocation. And then if you wanted to, you could probably even do the math in terms of how much people actually get paid personally, right? And sometimes it's 10 grand, sometimes it's like 60 grand or whatever. And then, of course, that doesn't actually spell out how much the chiefs are getting too. And
right.
and I'm not pushing back on any of that stuff. I mean, if that's the money that was allocated, then that's fine. But I think this is a topic that needs to be discussed more, because people don't know about it. And the only way that they'll know about it is by doing their own research, which Stacy has done, or listening to podcasts like this and getting educated. So I do advise people to don't take things at face value and be critical of things. And
Information's out there. You just have to look it up. It's right there.
Now I'm going to see if I can actually. Not even sure how I actually found it. I think I ended up just doing a search for how much the Canadian Indigenous payout was. I'm just going to quickly do that.
But also too, like Kerry, like if you go into the Fisheries Act, so this is like, so if we bring this to like the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, so the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, it actually came into play in 2009, and it's just right after Harper adopted the UN agenda, the sustainability goals. And this, like in Alberta at the time, it was actually Stelmach that was at the helm and said, like, we're going to implement this Land Stewardship Act. And there's some really good videos. Keith Wilson is a lawyer in St. Albert, and he did a really good video like back in 2009, like calling out like, this is not good, you guys. I've got some documentation, like people have come from like Peace River, and they had an assessment, a legal assessment done by the Brownlee barristers and sisters on the Alberta Land Stewardship Act and the risk associated to it. So people have been bringing me documents saying, check this out, you're not even going to believe this. And so the risk associated to this, because yes, it's been in and it's been in there for a long time, but there was a lot of flaws in it. And so they didn't have, this is a long game. So they didn't have everything all set up in the back end, because when you start going through all of the different divisions that have been set up, like the land and the land tribunal, the different environmental stewards that they're training, because they had to put all these people through government training of what they're going to go out and look for the environmental stewardship piece, right? Because they're putting, it's not like we've got Gookums and hereditary kind of people that are actually coming out and saying like, this is like what the land used to look like, and this is how we're going to improve it. And then they're just being involved in the decisions, and they're doing surveys at our lake. The concern is like, I saw a survey by with Alberta Environment, and there's a video with a woman named Glynis Buffalo, and so she put a survey out to Muscatchees to see like, okay, so what do we need to do with this lake, and what needs to be done to fix this lake. Well, as you start going into the Stewardship Act, this is also going to be playing into these water plans, these regional plans. And that's all based on water. They've taken our province and they've broken it out into 7 different areas. So the water is going to be the first topic. And you can see the narrative kind of building with like, oh, drought, extreme drought, extreme drought. They're going to push for like smart meters on everybody's on wells, because there's not going to be enough aquifer support. It's all of this is like governance to moderate what people use, because we're being too abusive to the land. And that's the language in the reports leading up to the implementation of this Alberta Land Stewardship Act. And it's, humans and their cumulative damage that they've created. And then when you kind of put in the UN agenda, so it's like by 2030, we want 30% back to 30% of the land back to pre-industrial, and that's pre-farming. So like pre-industrial stage. And then by 2050, we want 50% back to pre-industrial. Like the people that are coming up with these concepts, it's just so, I guess extreme is a good way to put it, that where do you want all of us to go? And really, are we that harmful? Like this narrative is, sure, there's some bad apples out there that are doing things and they need to get caught. If they're harming the environment, they're dumping their crap in locations that it shouldn't be, and they're not properly managed. Like we need the proper management of those systems and proper governance of those. But our police are people, they can't do it. So because they're not being supported. So it's a really weird catch-22. Like, so there's a couple bad seeds, but they ruin it for everybody. So then let's just bring in ultimate control. Like, no thanks. Like, I don't know.
No, that's definitely for sure. A couple of comments have come up in terms of, so how does this all fit into a one world government? How does it fit into the World Economic Forum? How does there's 193 UN countries out there, and they've all signed on right now with the Sustainable Development Goals. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to call that up. We've shown this graphic a few times just to show and reiterate. Everything looks all nice and fluffy, right? No poverty, zero hunger, good health and well-being, quality education, et cetera, et cetera. You can go on the UN sustainability goals. Yeah, it all sounds great, but then how do we get to there? And basically, the way that it is the United Nations will come in and just take away the land, and they will now be in charge of everything. And that's the quick nutshell. But how do they actually get to that point? Is they basically say, okay, we're going to take the land and give it back to the indigenous people, and a couple of people have actually said indigenous versus First Nations, but either way, it'll go back to the original settlers, if you want to call it that, or original owners of the land.
Not settlers. Yeah.
Legal terms. And then, of course, because we're basically fostering this how do I describe it? They're not great stewards of the land. They're average stewards of the land, and yet because we're giving them everything, we're giving them money, we're giving them the kind of the ultimate power, but not giving them direction. They're just going to go ahead and do their stuff. We briefly talked a little bit about water. And like if everybody got 10 grand or 60 grand or whatever on the reserve, and they actually pooled their money together and were able to make wells, then that whole water thing may go away. I don't know enough about the topic, but that's just kind of what I'm saying. So, but if that money is not there and is basically just thrown away on cars or materialistic things, and the land itself is not stewarded properly, then what's going to end up happening is the UN is going to come in and they're going to say, you know what, we gave you guys a shot. You're just not doing it very good. And, your trees are burning, your grass is burning, the water is contaminated. We're going to come in and try and clean this up for you. And in the meantime, if you're living next to a lake, we're going to send you back to a city so that we are able to do this. So
yeah, yeah, it's cumulative.
Yeah.
Like, so if you like, we have algae blooms that happen out here sometimes, right? And then we get whitefish kill off, but
we have
then
whirling disease right now with some of the lakes and the fish in Kananaskis and in Waterton. And basically that just means, and that's been happening for a couple of years, but specifically this year they just came out that they're actually closing all the lakes up in Waterton and in Kananaskis. You can't go fishing. You can't, as far as I know, you can't take any even canoes on them. Is kind of what they're saying, is that no, you cannot enjoy the lakes. You can stand back and you can look at them, but you can't actually. Yeah.
Well, that's even out here, because it's like in the setback that's in the documents, it's 100 or like 96 feet is the watershed setback. If so, majority of the lots are like 150 feet.
Yeah.
So that eliminates everybody that's lakefront, like, and so
You're
it's
right.
like get away from the lake. And when I brought this up to our council, it's like, well, we're gonna have to do whatever's there. Well, there's two things. We're gonna have to do whatever we have to do for the greater good. So that was one comment, and then the other comment was, they're never gonna do it.
Yes.
Never gonna.
That's
And
what
I'm
I
like,
hear all the time.
never gonna do it. Never gonna see that. They would do that. And then, but I'm hearing stories that, yeah, they are doing it, and they're doing it strategically in small little places, and so that it's like pick them off one at a time. And then how do people fight? Because even with the land rights tribunal, like U of A has a website that shows you, so it's the land property rights, Alberta land rights, and they walk through what regulatory and constructive taking is, and that's part of the Alberta Land Stewardship Act. And all of it is like, all about land conservation. But if we want to roll this back to this whole one world government piece, I investigated like who the consultants were for our community that were hired to come in. And so the company that was hired, they were educated at Dalhousie University.
Okay.
So then I went down the rabbit hole of, okay, well, Dalhousie University, searching it up to see if they had any connection with World Economic Forum. Lo and behold, leaked documents between Klaus Schwab and Dalhousie University on Treaties 21 and the Club of Rome, and implementation and training of the students that are basically coming out of that to implement the forum's goal, right? And on with the forum, when you do some hits on there, like you can see like I can't remember if the number was 13, like 13 contributors to like policy development from Dalhousie. And like U of A, U of C, U of S, like Action for Canada, I think, had put out all of the universities that had significant connections with the WEF. And so that's so I kind of went down that, and I'm like, okay, so and realistically, like this is the part that makes this so powerful, is that when these kids get out of school, they've been taught
Yes, they have.
The education system, and then they go into these universities and they want to do good, like they want to help, they want to be lawyers, they um be
They want to make the world a
environmentalists,
better,
they want to
make the world a better
want to
place.
do good, right?
Yes. Yeah.
um and they're told like that certain things are bad, and then that just kind of forms who they are, and then they learn how to come out and then be put into those roles that change what our way of life, I guess,
Yeah.
is, without actually understanding the back end of perhaps like financial motivations or control motivations. Or so I think majority of people actually have really good intentions, but they just don't understand that some of the ramifications, or maybe they are super passionate about it and they do think that this is the right answer. But when number one, in the before this Alberta Land Stewardship Act, or the regional plans, when those were getting worked on, and changing of the bylaws and the land use bylaws for our province in Alberta, the group that was hired was a company called the Ideas Group, and they're out of the UK, and they're actually in national defense. They develop processes and protocols for national defense.
Okay.
And they also have a technological tool that is an inventory kind of thing for everything that's on the land. And that's with all of the different countries. So that was kind of the first company, I guess, that was hired to kind of look at our land use framework. Then the next was the Praxis Group. When you search up Praxis, and you got to start, like, the words that are used actually take you down different areas too. And Praxis is a Marxist theory. So Praxis is, it's a Marxist theory.
Okay.
And then you start reading the wording of the survey that was put out to Albertans, and it was, what are you willing to give up to, and how you live right now, to save our earth and save our planet? What are you willing to give up? And we've been sold that, like, our land is so stressed and everything is so stressed, but like, we are so small potatoes. Like, we have 5 million people in Alberta.
In Alberta,
And our landmass compared to Germany, for example, we have 85% more landmass and way more minerals and resources and water and everything. And they have 87 million people.
Yeah.
And the language in this stuff, sell it to us, is that our land is super stressed out. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense if you know why they're saying it that way.
Well, it does. Right? It does, yeah.
But I think that's the thing, is that we have to have these conversations. And I always say, have the difficult conversations with your family and friends, and tell them what is actually going on, because people just, somebody said to me the other day, we were all ignorant about this. And it's like, I don't like the word ignorant, because ignorant almost means stupid. I think we're just naive. We were out living our own lives. And then really for me, when COVID hit, and that really opened up my eyes into, why was my business shut down, and what could I have done? And really, it ended up just going down this rabbit hole of what we're talking about right now. And it's amazing how even things like UNDRIP, that I didn't even know what UNDRIP was up until about 2 years ago. And now I wouldn't say it comes up in everyday conversation with my friends that we gab with, but there's always this mesh of things that we talk about. So, we were just briefly talking about the how the land acknowledgements was shame and guilt. And I'm just going to mute you again. And it was the same thing with truth and reconciliation. It's about climate change as well. If we can feel that we've done a really bad job on taking care of the planet, we will gladly hand over the land to someone else that will be, in theory, a better steward. But yet we know that they're not going to be a better steward. They're basically just looking at it and looking after getting our land and our resources and taking it from there. And I think what we need to do is just get a hold of our elected officials, because that's their job, and saying, we're not going to stand for this. We just do not want to have any part of this. And so again, tasking the people that are watching this, we're giving you this information and we want you to act upon it. We want you to basically emails or talk to your elected officials, talk to your schools, talk to your school boards, and find out what's going on. You know what? I've already accepted my role that people look at me with like, what is this guy talking about? And that's what I'm willing to accept, is that I want to be able to do this whistleblowing thing on a lot of stuff. And this is one of those things. One of these hills that I guess I'm willing to die on, is to let the people know about what's going to transpire in the next few years if we do nothing. And here's my last little bit on that rant: was I would much rather go down fighting and not have this come to fruition and say, I don't know, Kerry was a nut job, than as opposed to actually going through and I'm sitting around doing squat all. So that's my statement. So, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah. So
well, this conversation, like I think that's the best part that's come out of a lot of this. Like, I know the shutdown, like they didn't want us all together, and they are like intentionally like trying to silence us, right?
Yeah.
Because I try and share information out, and I'm blocked and banned, and like, so that there's certain things that the powers that be that control whatever it is, the corporations, but ultimately it's our government.
Yeah.
Because they've got the ability to shut down like the conversations that are happening. Like, we think they don't, but they do. Like,
yeah.
So
here's
read your terms and conditions.
Yeah.
And there's an entire division that every single thing that we say or do, like, it all gets fed back to a department of our government already.
Yeah.
Like, so
Yeah.
it's part of the terms and conditions. They have an entire division.
Yeah.
So
one thing I did want to bring up too is this has already started in BC, like
Yeah.
heavily started in BC. Do you know a little bit more about what's happening in Vancouver? And I'd like to at least just briefly talk about that, so that people are aware of that this really is happening, and that we can see it.
So I'm and again, like, I'm getting a variety of different stories that are kind of coming through to me, but basically, there's like areas now that are parks or provincial parks that you have to pay to go and use. There's areas that are being completely shut down, like just like your example that you said there, in the mountains. Like, you can't even use the water. You can't even go on the lake. There's like senior passes for walking on the beach, or not just seniors, but like you have to pay to walk on the beach. Like, and it's basically like the way that it's kind of pitched, it's like a guest. We are guests on this land. And so we have to pay a fee to enjoy it. And we pay a lot of fees. And that's the part I think that's so divisive about all of this, is we are literally being taxed and charged to death. We have cumulative taxes and taxes on taxes, and people are done. Like, and I don't want, like, I really do not want this to come to a head and then it be that it's the First Nations fault. There's some bad players that are participating, and they're getting funded to make sure that they're playing their part in all of this. But majority of people, I encourage everybody, go for a drive. Take a drive through a res.
Yeah.
And go see how they actually like they look and see how people are having to live. It's not how they want to live. Like anyway, it's frustrating. It's so and then also there was a story that came to me, like this fellow in British Columbia bought his like piece of land. There was aquifers on it that a company was doing a geothermal project with one of the bands. They showed up at his lot. There was these drilling rigs on there, and they needed the water, and there was nothing he could do. He like and they said, beat it. Like we have the water rights now, and that the land is we if we need the resources, then you can't prevent us from doing this. And so now people are kind of like, what the heck's going on, right? Like they're waking up, but they didn't even know. But there are videos, there's really good videos. Watch Apache Television Network. Like that
really.
right there, like on YouTube, I watch Apache Television Network. That tells me more information than anything. And then you get a different perspective and talk to some people I've been asking anyone to go for coffee with me. This is the thing, it's kind of like the LGBTQ thing. Like with the First Nation, there's many that don't want to be called First Nations because it's not actually a term, and it actually is seen derogatory and not it takes away rights. So it's language, like it's language being used against them. So Native, Indian, there's all these different terms, but I think that's to make us confused too, and then politically incorrect, and then it's a great tactic to just shut us down from having conversations. But like we need to have more conversations with First Nation people to understand, like, hey, like what's your take on this? Like, is it good? Is it bad? And as I'm having these conversations and asking people to just meet with me and have a coffee with me, just so I can see, like, I was a little bit pissed off. There was a gal that I reached out to in our community, and I said, like, I see, like, you're trying to do some really cool things, like, really creative lady. And she said, you just want to talk to me because I'm Native. And I said, I want to talk to you because we share a community. And I thought we could have a coffee. And she's like, my consulting fee is $400 an hour.
Wow.
And like that, it's just like, come on. Like everything's about money. And it's just like it's infuriating. And obviously, like the more that we're going to get taxed, and the higher that the taxes become out in rural communities, and the lack of permits that they want to issue, and the harder they make it, because like they're not grandfathering stuff in, like our bylaws. Check this out. So they're writing it into your land use bylaws in your area. And then they're writing in the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, which they don't have to. And when you challenge them on it, they say, well, we have to do this because the province is forcing us. So if the province decides not to do it, then you're fine, and and everything will be normal. Yeah, right. Anyway, right of entry. So this is being written into all of the communities in Alberta. And whether your consultant is the company that did ours, whether it's Stantec that is doing it, it's the same template. K3, I think, is another company name. They're working off the same template. They want all of us to be on the exact same page, and they're adding this language in here. So it's right of entry. A designated officer may enter the property outside of the identified period if, in their opinion, a possible violation constitutes an immediate health, safety, or environmental concern. That is access to and this is not fire, ambulance, police. This is, and I asked the question, I'm like, well, who's this designated officer? Well, it could be, they're like, we're not sure. Like, it could be anyone. Okay. So like you're just giving anyone access to my house. So
Well,
and then
definitely in an
they're writing
emergency. Yeah. We've seen that
yeah,
in an emergency. Calgary floods, the flooding down in High River. I mean, they were basically just they could go into anybody's house, and they did.
wow.
Yeah.
They're
So,
writing
and again, if
imprisonment.
there's
They're writing an imprisonment. So if a fine is not paid, the person is liable for imprisonment for not more than 1 year or to both fine and imprisonment.
yeah, yeah.
Like imprisonment. What I'm like, what fines are you talking about? Like what fines are you planning on issuing us? Like the fines that I saw in ours before all of this, before they implement or wrote in Alberta Land Stewardship Act into this, which also you can't get a fine list from that one either because it's still in development.
Hmm.
Like they wrote this in with a blank check.
Yeah.
Like and there's
That's
so much scrutiny over this. Like
um,
it's all ESG scores and sustainable development, cumulative effect on human endeavors. Um, the in carrying out the purpose of the act, in carrying out the purpose of this act as specified in subsection 2, government must respect the property of other rights of individuals and must not infringe on those rights with due process of law and to the extent necessary for overall greater public interest.
hmm.
So who's
Yeah.
determining that?
Yeah. Well, this is definitely a topic we could talk hours on. We're at about an hour. I'm going to go back, and I know there were people that did make some comments, and I can't. Some of these I can't answer. Some of them we may not be able to answer, but there are definitely comments. I'm going to say, let's see.
And
Let's start with
I do want a minute too about this. I want to read you a letter that we gave or we read to the
yeah.
Minister of Indigenous Affairs, Rick Wilson.
Okay.
Um,
Good. Okay,
yeah,
then yeah, let's we'll wrap it up with that because I think that's a good way to do it. So
sure.
Ed asks, will UNDRIP also apply to the three remaining city-states in the world? One, the Vatican and Italy; two, the District of Columbia and USA; and three, London City, the 1 square mile business inside within the city of London. So basically, he's just asking, is this really going to be everywhere, or is it going to be just except for those three?
Well,
Do you have any?
they're doing it in the States right now, and there's a separate movement actually as well. That's UNDRIP and land back are happening at the same time. And the interesting thing, like I guess the benefit of us having to um like who pays for the YouTube videos, like so if you're sponsored or paid for like on the YouTube videos, right,
Yeah.
it shows. And land back so there's videos that are on YouTube that I've been watching sponsored by Qatar,
Oh
like
yeah.
Qatar,
Yeah, yeah.
like so
Saudi
that's like
Arabia.
yeah,
Yeah,
so if you think about this, Qatar is like, or Qatar, I guess, like is what they call
yeah,
it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
Qatar or whatever.
yeah.
Um, this is about our minerals. This is not about First Nations. This is about gaining control over this land, and it's
Mhm.
about our resources that are here. It's no secret that Canada has resources. Like it's just in how all of it is managed, right? And but that when I saw that, that scared the shit out of me. No, sorry, but
No,
that
that's good.
I'm like,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Um, Here's another comment. Judy says, is the provincial government aware of all this, or is this all federal? The UN is going to be the death of us yet.
So I have an opinion on that
And
because
let's hear your
nobody wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole
I agree.
because it's like they're deeming it as one of those topics
Yeah.
like LGBTQ, like women's rights, all of the things that they're using against us. Indigenous is no different. They're using them again so that we all are divided instead of actually realizing like we all kind of want the same stuff. Like we want to be able to feed our families. We want to have a job. We want to be able to have a roof over our head and be taken care of, like for some healthcare needs or whatever. Like we're not that
Yeah.
complex, and most of us want the same thing.
Yeah.
Provincial government we've been making them aware, and by going to council meetings, which they laugh at us, but going and talking to the ministers, trying to get podcasts and groups like this to get actively talking, because you have connections. These are just people that are living in our province. But again, there's some other bigger things at play too. Like when you research, and I'm sure most of you know about the C40 and all of the mayors that are aligned with the smart city agenda.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the C40. That was Iverson that kind of started that group in support with Trudeau, and that's all about the smart city, 15-minute city agenda for surveillances. And like the provincial government has to be aware of it, because a lot of these initiatives are happening under provincial, like roads and transportation and all of that kind of stuff. They know they're installing all the cameras everywhere. Municipalities are installing the cameras everywhere. They know, like, and the part that I don't love is that they all know. They all know that this is playing out. Like they all know, because Harper signed us up for this UN agenda. We've got MPs that, like Mike Lake does videos, like supporting UN agenda, sustainable goals. Like it's on it's a TED talk. Like, so they know what's happening. He's federal, but like talking to Rick Wilson in our area, like he's our provincial MLA. He's aware, but he didn't even really want to address it. He just kind of was like, we're like, well, why don't you give back the First Nation their land? Give them their land. You're saying that this Alberta Land Stewardship Act, and you're going to do all this reconciliation, but they're not. They're not giving them land. They're giving them cash, which they know is just going to back into the system.
Yeah,
like it's just yes. Yeah. So I think they know.
And speaking of divisiveness, one thing that I've certainly noticed in the last couple of weeks with Canadian and U.S. politics, right? So I follow both sides just because I like to know what's going on. They're literally using the same memes for Biden and Trump and just swapping out the heads. And yet it's the same message. And the same thing is I've really noticed lately is with Trudeau and Poilievre. The same sort of divisiveness, and it doesn't make any sense to me. It's like, well, so if that meme works for you, then it shouldn't work for me, but it does. Why is that doing that? Because we're split right down the middle. So
well, it's interesting, because even with I was watching a really great, because that is the thing. It's like, how do you we're all divided, but we're actually not. There was a great video, Rebel News, the one, I can't remember the guy's name right now. Anyway, he was interviewing people, and he was saying that this is what Putin's doing in Russia. And he's going to implement this bill there, and it's hate crimes, and if you say this, then you're going to go to jail, and you're going to be in prison, or you're going to be in prison, and you're going to have this huge fine and pay $20,000 to the person that you said something bad about. And they're like, that is awful. That, like, but as soon as they said, well, that's actually happening here, it's like glitch. What? Like, and they didn't know how to, because it's like it kind of messes up the programming. It was like, it's pretty well. I mean, that's brilliant. Like that is a way to actually get people to kind of go, oh my.
Yeah, that's right. We briefly touched on this. Does UNDRIP affect all countries who are UN members? Short answer is yes, right? Because if they're all signing up for the same goals, I can put that back up on the screen here. It's the same goals. Then they've all said, "Yep, we're good with that." All 193.
Yeah. Well, it's not that the people are good with that. It's the government that signed them up. The ICLEI.
Right. No one asked my permission for that.
No. An interesting thing, Kerry, that I stumbled upon last night was actually because everything is very much like it feels, and I've never lived in a communist country. I've been talking to people that moved here from communist regimes, and they're very, very worried. I was in Vancouver at an event, and this lady came up to me, and she was from China, and she was pleading me to, like, she's like, we need to fight this. Like, we cannot, we're going down the same path, maybe even worse. And like, they know what it looks like, and they think we're so stupid here because we can't see it, but they see it. Like, it's like, we're slowly just being led down the trail of all of this. And she was just, she was begging me to, like, try and get more people to be aware. And I stumbled upon this website yesterday that a fellow shared with me, and it's the kites manifesto.
Oh yes,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah. Marxism and
communist
yeah.
Marxist group that is there. They launched January 2024, and they in their manifesto, it actually calls out how they're going to do it, and they are doing it.
Yeah.
Like, it is actually their plan. I was reading it literally last night.
That could be a whole show altogether, because I know
Oh,
we kind of briefly touched on that before, that if originally that exact document was on the NDP site, and it's no longer there, but essentially that's the guidebook that they're using. So
it's manifesto.
yeah.
Yep.
So Wendy asks, or says, I hope I can be proven wrong, but the conspiracies are piling up like a manure pile. I heard Rayanne spotted Bull first and started following UNDRIP, and I drove to hear Stacy speak in Leduc. So thank you, Wendy, for doing that. I think really it just needs, like, people need to get out of their homes and drive or listen to podcasts like this and become aware, become informed, and even things that are happening in Calgary. So I'm not officially a part of the U.N.D.R.I.P recall, but I'm certainly watching that with bated breath, because here we have recall legislation now. As long as we have whatever amount percentage of voters, and they're basically saying 500,000 out of the city of 1.4 million, 1.3, somewhere in there, then we can recall the mayor. And but that number is way too high, because there was only 340,000, I think, that voted in the municipal election anyways, of which she got 40% of that. So, say 120, 130,000 people. There's no way that we'll be able to get 500,000. But going through this process really is a great learning experience, because we're essentially wanting to do that on a couple of different things with the Alberta Prosperity Project. Obviously, number one, we want to have a referendum on independence. And in order to do that, we need 600,000 people. But we're also looking at the Alberta pension plan. And I'm just going to pause you or mute you for a second. In order to get that, we basically need it as a citizens initiative, and we need 200,000 signatures, or 200, not signatures per se, 200,000 names that are willing to vote on a referendum. Now, you could be on either side. You could say yes or no. You don't want an AP Alberta pension plan, or yes, you do want one. But we need at least 200,000 so that we can actually do a referendum, and then it's up to your choice to be able to do that. And going through this process with the recall of the Calgary mayor really opens our eyes as to the limitations that they've done on purpose in order so that we can't do this. It's almost unachievable, right? But we know that going through this process and letting people know what's going on with it, there was two ladies, for lack of a better word, I'm just going to say ladies, that did some vandalism to one of the Gondek signs. That has had 400,000 views on social media. So there are currently more people that are aware of the sign that got vandalized than there were that have actually signed up for the recall, right? And that's the power of social media. So if we can get word out that what we want to do and somehow make it viral, and then maybe we can actually make some change in this world, and certainly here in Alberta. So that's kind of tasking what people are watching. We definitely want to have you guys out there being our voices. We're only talking amongst ourselves here, but we need you guys to get out there and talk a little bit more too. So we just do a few more questions, probably another 15 minutes or so. Let's see. Judy asks, they never really owned land. They were roaming encampments following the buffalo. How did they own land? And that's in regards to the First Nations. Do you want to maybe have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, though. Like, and that's definitely a topic that's coming up right now, right? Because the numbers, like, and from our meeting that we had with Rick, and we were asking about, we're like, what is the numbers? Like, because when you look at the amount, like, there's these claims coming back that people when they were determining how many people were here, they were off hunting and they weren't around, so then the number is wrong. So now there's claims coming back that the number, like, when if you look at like Statistics Canada or whatever, like there was like about 200,000 is what I've found so far. But what I've found is very different than what I'm being met with some of the conversations, because what I found was that there was 200,000 First Nation people, Native people, that were in Canada when the settlers came here in the 1600s. That was like a number that Stats Can had. But now the claim is that there was 30 million, and they were basically either hunting or they were killed by disease, obviously, that settlers brought because they were interacting with one another and whatnot. So there is, like, in terms of owning land, like, I do agree with you. Like, it would have been a foreign policy at all, like, because that's how they didn't look at the land like that, and they didn't have to have ownership because that wasn't how their society was positioned. But it's like anywhere in the world now, like, people own their land. Like, there's land has been kind of divvied out across the entire globe, and that's the trade has been set up. Like, it's
we've said it many times.
Like, it's like, how far do we go back, really? Because there's all these different theories too. I'm Viking, like, I'm Norwegian, so there was theories on the Norwegian kind of
That's right.
individuals that were in Canada, and they had been here as well. And so there's all these. So it's like, well, how do you determine what is truth and what is that actual number? And we have a hard enough time having statisticians come up with what we've got for people nowadays. Like, it's hard. Like, and so it's storytelling. It becomes the art of storytelling and whose story is the best. And right now they're literally deleting so much stuff on the internet, and they're rewriting books.
Yes, they are. Yeah. And heavily censored so that we can't have these conversations. Right?
Yeah.
And with C-36 coming through, we mean, hate speech. We just by having this conversation, right? We strange times we live in. Let me tell you that. Charlie says, we see it. 90% of people in our country think we can vote it away. That's where the stupidity comes from. And you know what? I have to agree with you. It's if we're in the system, we have to figure out either a way to get out of this particular system or to work within it to a better advantage. And you can kind of do whatever you want to do with that. But I do think that what we're trying to do right now is lawfully, legally trying to make changes and break away from the federal government, right? So, and that's kind of what APP's always talked about. our own sovereignty. And we're trying to empower the government to enable to do that. You know, pension is one thing, RCMP, taxation, employment insurance. You know, those are things that all provinces can have control over, but there's only a select few that have, because it seems like such a big daunting task, right? Because even in terms of, I'll just go off on a side note here for a second. Even in terms of the pension plan, well, if you're working for a company and they have to take your CPP right now, and they give it to the federal government, it's almost like we would need our own taxation in order to get that money first, right? That way, all the money just goes there. The companies are just dealing with one check, if you want to call it that way. Versus if we had our own, then we would basically tell Albertans that, okay, some of that money is going to go to the Alberta pension plan, and the rest of your taxes are going to go there, however you want to do it. We're attempting to do 100 events until June, talking about the pension plan, and I really do hope that people do come out and take a listen, which side you're on. The important thing is just to get that information, and then you can decide if it's a good thing or not. One of the things I will say, because we've done, I think, 8 or 10 events already, is the majority of the people that are coming out for these events are, I'll call them gray hairs. I've got gray hairs, but I color so you can't tell. But definitely, it's the older people, 50 and up, right? They're the ones that honestly are probably the least impacted by this legislation that went through. And the reason is because you've already got your money in your CPP. It's going to be there, right? Even if we said yes today that we're going to go ahead and do this, it's going to be 3 years from now what we've got. I know she's doing that funny thing with her face, but the idea is that 3 years from now is when we would end up implementing all this stuff, because there's a lot of stuff that needs to take place in the meantime, right? But if we really need to target the younger people are the ones that are being paid, that are paying into this. And again, I won't go into, we've done a webinar on how the pension actually works. If you had 100% of the pie, 95% of that pie is actually going back into the system to pay the retirees who are collecting CPP. Only 5% of that wedge is actually being invested in going further. So every year, that's what happens. So only 5% of that is being invested, and this 95% goes back. So and unless everybody just is unable to pay, which is always a possibility, then that's the only way you would lose your CPP as it is. And I won't get into any more of that because I can already see my foot going into my mouth. But just an interesting side note on that. So we are doing events, and I hope you guys can you definitely make it out to listen to what the Alberta Prosperity Project. Now, even though it's actually not under the banner of Alberta Prosperity Project, I should let people know that too. We're going in a slightly different direction in terms of Alberta Prosperity Project, but the Alberta First Pension Group is the one that's actually putting on these talks. So we'll probably have them on a webinar or something at some point. So,
Kerry, I just want to make the comment. We're talking about researching and not just blindly trusting. And I want people to Google World Economic Forum and CPP and where our Canada pension plan sits right now, and when it was handed over to the WEF. Because that was under Trudeau. Not good.
Well, this is a good. Marion just said maybe we need a TikTok influencer to promote the APP. That would be great if TikTok was not going to be banned. Maybe there's a reason why they're going to be banning that. I know we've had lots of people say, you know what, your videos are just, as much as we love watching them on a Wednesday night or maybe even watching them during the rest of the week, they're just an hour and a half long. And a lot of times that hour and a half is just a little too long for people. So if you've got some video editing skills and you want to come in and cut up one of these videos into 3-minute chunks, by all means, get a hold of me, you can definitely get a hold of me. I think I even have my my email on here. I'm just going to push that up there, and because we could definitely use some help. And I think that's one thing. There you go. You can get a hold of us at contact@albertaprosperity.com. That will definitely help alleviate a lot of these things. We are definitely volunteer based, right? And very little, if anybody, even gets paid on APP. The money that comes in basically goes towards events. It goes towards hosting these webinars. It costs money to actually have all this stuff up here on the screen. There's a subscription, and then we also subscribe to different things like YouTube and Rumble, and so that we can have a better experience for our viewers as well, etc. So that's kind of where the money goes, and I really do think that people need to understand that this sort of a platform, it just doesn't. It's not free, and it certainly cannot be free if it was sustainable. We need donations. If you found any of this informative and you want to make a donation, please do. You can go on the Alberta Prosperity Project website. And speaking of which, how would anybody get a hold of you, Stacy, if they wanted to give you some information, or maybe to maybe even just to drop you a few bucks to say thank you for all the work that you put in?
Number one, and I know people are probably going to laugh at me because I'm basically just on Facebook, because that is majority of the people that are landowners. That's the platform that they use. And so age and demographics, I'm like, that's the audience. That's who we need to actually be aware, and then their kids, so that they understand what the impact is going to be too. And so I'm on Facebook, the voice of Pigeon Lake and County of Wetaskiwin. I've been connecting with Carly and June from Thorhild. We've been going and supporting each other, and then sharing information, and then the group just keeps growing, and all of the communities are starting to actually read. So I don't want any money. I want people to read. I want people to go, number one, I want you to go and see the last time your bylaw where you live, to see last time that it was modified. And then if it was modified, I'd like you to look and see if they've written in the Alberta Land Stewardship Act, and if they've written in the right of entry into your home. So that's number one. I just do some research. Number two is pay attention to intermunicipal development plans. If your communities and your counties and your municipalities are changing bylaws, they're killing us one page at a time, one legislation at a time. And it's really hard to put it together, because you read the documents and then it says amended here, or see this subsection, or see this act. And so where this bylaw will look like, it's just a land use bylaw that's changed in it, and it just says, we're going to follow the Alberta Land Stewardship Act. It sounds like a nice act to follow. You open up that Land Stewardship Act, and it's a massive document, and it gives one person, Salman Lakhani, the governor general in governor and council for Alberta, ultimate power over every single person in Alberta's land, and that's the Crown. So, the Alberta Land Stewardship Act supersedes any other act. So the Fisheries Act, any other act, this supersedes it and takes precedent. So look to see if it's all been written in. If it's not been written in, and they're trying to write it in, go on to the municipal. So the people that did our consulting was the municipal planning services. And they've got a list who the communities that they've already done, and the communities that they're responsible for. It's right on that list. So if you live in that community, you will know that bylaw, that is that blanket bylaw, has probably been put forth to your council, and maybe it's been adopted, because they pass it when people aren't paying attention, and they know we're not paying attention. So we need people to pay attention. And then the last thing is I don't know if any of you have watched any of the videos with Maggie Hope Braun.
Yes. Yeah.
She's
Yeah.
been studying the ICLEI, so that's the Federation.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
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 So I was on a call earlier that Maggie was on, and I joined her on Friday as well. And she's doing some great work. We are all researching together and helping. She's put a lot of work into a documentation and a presentation that people can give to each of their councils to help educate them and let them know what they've signed up for.
Yeah.
And then once they know, then like the due diligence is on them, like because then they're aware and they need to
That's
be
right.
responsible to us.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so we are doing what we're trying to do in Alberta is essentially we're going to take Maggie's ICLEI approach. I'm looking for team captains in every hamlet, summer village, county and municipality in this province. I want to have a list in each of these communities. So if you can reach out to me and you're willing to be a captain to serve a letter and live stream it on social media, we're going to do it all on the same day. We are going to have a letter that is asking for councils to be removed or to remove themselves from ICLEI and serve notice of liability and removing from the Alberta Land Stewardship Act. So that's what our goal is. We would like to do this before the end of April so that because our legislation goes into holiday mode come middle of May, right?
Yeah.
So we need them aware and on it, and because time is running out.
Yeah.
They're pushing hard on every single thing right now. So
well, lots of accolades here. Wendy says thank you, Stacy. Martin says thank you for your work, Stacy and Kerry. God bless. Charlie says
you're very welcome.
Thank you, Stacy, for your information. You're a smart lady. Yes, you are.
Trying. I was not very good in school, but now I'm like passionate about this. So I'm actually enjoying, I hate saying it, but I actually am enjoying researching this, and I'm kicking myself for not paying more attention earlier. So
an important topic to discuss, Lynette says. That's great. And Benita, who's was on the show a couple of weeks ago.
Nice. Good one, Benita.
Yep, she's going to be speaking next Wednesday, next week. You can register there under tinyurl.com/conservatizing. So go there and then you can listen a little bit more. And yeah, we're going to reach out to Maggie and make sure that we get her on. And if not on here, then on this platform, the Alberta Prosperity Project, then definitely on a Chris and Kerry show very, very soon. So excellent. Nice. And with that, I'm going to say, well, thank you so much again for all the work that you've done, Stacy. Great conversation, great topic. And again, it's one of these things that can branch off in a billion different ways, because we see more and more how things are woven together.
Tentacles is the right. There's tentacles everywhere. Yeah. Well, thank you for the time on here tonight, for the people that have been paying attention, and you guys have been fighting the good fight for a really long time. And I do want to make a comment. Like there was a person that made a note in there and saying fear. We should be afraid.
Yeah.
We should have the ability to not live in fear. And that's why we have to stand up to this. Like, unless you want to live like George Orwell's like 1984, and I highly recommend you watch the movie. Yeah. I don't want to live like that.
Yeah.
I don't want my kids living like that. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, with that, I'm going to say good night. But before I do that, again, next week we have Alberta Prosperity Project's interim CEO, Christopher Scott, who will be joining us. And again, if you missed it at the beginning, he's currently in Europe. He's in Amsterdam, actually, right now. He's physically, and one more thing. Yeah, we'll do that. and he's actually in Venice, Italy. He's going to come back and report on what's happening over in Europe, because there's a lot of stuff that we get censored and we have no idea what's happening. There's lots of farmer protests, and he was at a Christine Anderson event last week. And Christine Anderson is the German, I actually forget her title, but she is high up in the government there, and she's been speaking out about a lot of the stuff that's been happening. She even came to Canada last year, I believe, and did some speaking there. So Chris went out there to listen to her, and he's going to be reporting back on. And yeah, before we leave, definitely, Stacy, talk about that document. Yes.
Yeah, I'll read this. And okay, so this is on February 2nd, 2024. We left him with this letter, and we also left him with a bunch of questions.
And who is him? Just to refresh
so this is Minister Rick Wilson, who is the Minister of Indigenous Affairs in Alberta. And this is the meeting that we had in his office with 20 of the farmers in our in our community. So attention, Minister Rick Wilson, we meet with you today to request that you table a growing concern about the rights of Albertans and Canadian citizens, inclusive of all colors of skin and historical ethnicity. In a country where there are new regulations in respect to hate crimes and discrimination under the umbrella of diversity, equity, and inclusion, many of us are feeling that we are being targeted specifically based on the color of our skin, which is white. We are being called colonizers, racists, extremists, and radicals, and we are being demonized in the education system to our Indigenous fellow Canadians and to our own children, who are psychologically being fed to feel shame about who they are. Reverse apartheid will not lead to a healthy, safe, loving, and cohesive Canada. We have paid our taxes, contributed to society and building of Canada and its social government programs through our labor, our resources, and our precious lives. We request that a review of this harmful attack on white humans cease immediately.
Yeah.
We have reviewed UNDRIP and the term decolonization and its focus for Canada. We would like you to explain what this means for Canadian citizens of all skin colors born in Canada holding Canadian passports. We are aware of the UNDRIP policy that the federal government is endorsing across our nation right now, and how the Alberta Land Stewardship Act is an arm of this movement. We are following the land claims in BC, Nunavut, Ontario, which brings us to our own province of Alberta, to which you too reside. You own property and you have a growing family. The Alberta Land Stewardship Act, which is being written into our community bylaws and legislation, provides the legal arm of enforcement through land expropriation. All of this is supported by the Alberta Lieutenant Governor in Council, Salma Lakini, who has ultimate veto power under this act. We understand that she was placed in this powerful position under the advice of Justin Trudeau to Jason Kenney in 2020, and we have growing concern over the intent of this act. We have met with our summer villages, counties, and municipalities, and they have all indicated that they have no option other than to participate based on the provincial government's pressure. Therefore, we seek for you to repeal this act. Please see the questions that we respectfully ask you to have answers back to us by March 1st. To report to the citizens of Alberta based on your perspective as an MLA in the Wetaskiwin-Muskogee District, the Minister of Indigenous Affairs, and neighbor, businessman, friend, and father in Alberta. Or alternatively, we would love for you to participate in a community town hall to address this in your own words in March of 2024. We will support advertising to ensure high participation in this event. We seek peaceful, respectful, and honest conversation to guide us through this time. Respectfully concerned humans in Alberta, Canada.
Awesome. Wow. And did you get a reply back immediately? Nothing? You crickets. I hate using that term, but it is kind of funny. Wow. So follow up with it?
Yep.
Many times, I guess. Yeah. I know people have said, can you get a meeting with Danielle Smith, or, I think there's enough. Well, maybe there's not enough people that have addressed this with her. And somebody even said, Pierre, quite frankly, says that he doesn't know anything about the UN 2030 and or the sustainable goals. And I mean, how can he be in that position and not know?
That's what Mike Lake said to us.
Yeah.
He said that they can, and basically gave us the conspiracy theory eyeball. And we're like, this is your job. You need to know this.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, that, again, amazing work that you're doing. Thank you again. And we will definitely have you, hopefully we'll have you back on in a couple of months and see if anything has happened. Anything positive.
It will.
It's absolutely.
You know what? It will. There's more and more people waking up every day. It will have an impact, and we will expose all of this crap.
Yeah, I agree. Excellent. Yeah. Well, again, thank you everybody for watching us as well for the hour and 45 minutes, and we will see you guys next Wednesday or at a meeting near you. I know if you can go on to the I'm just going to quickly plug here on the Alberta Prosperity Project. I know we've got some dates that are coming up for meetings. We definitely need to repopulate this thing. We're actually coming up with a new website, and I believe it's going to go live next week. So it'll have a lot of stuff. It'll also have the quick links to the webinars, which is a question that we've been asked many times. Is there a quick way to just find all the webinars and by topic? We'll have that up there as well. And then the last thing that I did want to show is that if I can find it here, we have a website that Max put together, is the freedomcalendar.net, and you can go there. And I just happen to have the Alberta pension plan opened up. But this is a list of all the meetings that do take place in Alberta. Max is doing an amazing job with that. I'm just going to hide the banner there, so that way. Where is that? I can't even find how to hide things on here. There you go. I'm just going to hide that so you get a better idea of what's happening on the Freedom Calendar. And the last thing was that we have gone through and we're making a pension plan calendar, or a pension plan website as well under the Alberta First Pension Plan. It's going to have a calendar, a list of the dates, and here are things that are happening. Drumheller was tonight. Three Hills is on Friday. Olds, I'll be in Olds and in Chestermere next week, and then Brooks. And this site is not officially live yet, but it will be under the Alberta First Pension.ca, and you'll be able to find out more about that. We'll definitely post that on our social media links when that is available. So with that, thanks again. This has been the longest thanks again goodbye. But it's been an amazing topic, and thank you again. And we will definitely see you guys next week.
April 1st protest, attacks, axe attacks.
Oh, that's right. That's right too. April 1st. So here's my tiny little rant on this. We're complaining about the carbon tax being on fuel, and yet most of us don't live near a border, and yet we're going to be driving out to the border. Do you see what?
But you know what? Get creative and
I know.
Go to find out where MP is, and find out where get awareness everywhere. It doesn't matter. Even if you can't get to the border, get posters up, get people aware. $170 is where this is going by 2030, and the COP28 that just happened. They did a huge cash call for trillions of dollars. First global stock take, trillions of dollars, and deployment of the digital tools that are ready for implementation. That is the call out to all the UN countries. Trillions of cash, digital tools. $170 is the goal for that carbon tax by 2030. That's 427% increase to our cost of living.
That's
They're
ridiculous.
us. They're going to crush us.
Yeah, you're right. All right, and on to some good news. You guys have an amazing night. Go out. Don't forget to shovel your snow tonight in central and southern Alberta. Yeah. All right.
Okay, goodbye now.
Good night.